Hey everyone, it's Jamie Jo Wright here with Madlit Musings, and I have back with us today Karen Witemeyer. Hey Karen,
Hello.
I'm so glad to have you back because this is such a fun series to chat about, and we have Cloaked in Beauty, which is the
That's
next
coming up
one.
soon.
I
Yes.
know, that's exciting. So I'm starting to lose count, but this is book three, correct?
Correct.
All right,
Yes.
so remind me on the first two titles in the trilogy.
The first one was Fairest of Heart, and it was kind of a Snow White retelling. And then If the Boot Fits was number two, and that, of
Hmm.
course, was a Cinderella retelling. And then Cloaked in Beauty is number three, and it's kind of a mashup between Sleeping Beauty and Little Red Riding Hood.
Well, how fun is that?
Yeah.
A mashup. That had to really take you down some interesting turns when you were thinking about building the story.
Well, I knew I wanted to do like a Sleeping Beauty type story, but if you
Okay.
think about so these are based off of like the Disney version, not the like original.
Correct, which are far more terrifying.
Yes,
Let's
yeah,
just
that's
throw
more
that out
your
there.
style.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe I should write those.
But when you think about the Disney Sleeping Beauty, her backstory, right, is okay, she was born and then the evil queen came and cursed her. And so the fairies whisked her off to raise her off in the forest all by herself until her 16th birthday and she returned and that kind of thing. Well, I still wanted that whisking off and having to be raised, all by herself, just with a few people helping her out. But I'm like, well, I can't do fairies because
No,
that, doesn't really work.
no.
So what can I do? And I was like, well, if I was the mother and I had no choice but to send my child off with somebody else, who would I trust with that? I mean, that's a huge
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
Like, well, who else would I trust more than the woman that raised me? Right.
Right.
So sending her off with the grandmother to go. And then I'm thinking, grandmother in the forest, what does that make me think of? And so that's where Little Red Riding Hood kind of came in.
Yeah,
And of course, we have the play with the red cloak that she wears, and she has a pet wolf that she
I love it.
she finds and raises from a pup, and
Yep.
so there's a wolf in the story and the cloak, but then the rest of the story is mostly Sleeping Beauty. So Little Red Riding Hood just kind of has some flavor in there and helps
Mhm.
explain the backstory, while the main story is really more Sleeping Beauty.
That's super fun, and I love the fact that there's a wolf, but it's not like the hero is the wolfish werewolf or something like
Right,
that. We're
right.
still going with the princely characters. Now, your these stories are all set like Western style though,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, they're all in Texas, all in the late 1800s, 1880s, 80s, I think most of them are. And so, yeah, it's been fun to kind of give them a different twist because I've seen a lot of fairy tale retellings with like medieval time
Mhm,
periods
mhm,
or, in the contemporary genre or even, like fantasy type genre. But I
mhm.
haven't seen very many done with a Western spin. So this was kind of
Yeah,
fun to get to imagine them in a new place.
right, right. That's really cool too, because the Western, you don't picture the mashup of fairy tale and Western, but then when you hear it and you see your covers, which are also
They have done
resplendently
such a good
gorgeous.
job. Yes. I've
I
been
mean,
so pleased.
they really did too, because they caught the essence of the fairy tale, but somehow made it look Western, which I was like, wow, that takes some
I
talent.
know. Yes, I've been so happy with them.
Yeah, yeah, that takes some serious talent. Okay, so what can you tell us about the story? I mean, I think most people are familiar with Sleeping Beauty and Little Red Riding Hood, but now this is also your own story. So what can you tell us without spoiling anything?
Sure. So, our heroine, she has, like I said, been whisked away to be raised. Her uncle is the evil villain in the story, and he wants her inheritance. So she is set to inherit a very large amount of money. He wants to take that for himself. His brother was the one that passed away, and is handing it down to the daughter. And so she because if her life is threatened, her
Hmm.
mother, for reasons that I won't go into, sends her away to be raised until she can come back and claim her inheritance after her first birthday. We're going to let her get a little older.
Little older
Uh,
than 16 is probably a good
yeah,
idea. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So she's been living in seclusion with only her grandmother. She has no friends, no other people contact because it was too dangerous. And so she really has no experience with other people. But her grandmother, knowing what world she's going to have to step into, has been preparing her all this time for, this is what society is going to expect. And you got to
Hmm.
watch out for fortune hunters. And you got, so all this, she's
Yeah.
been very practical, very wise, trying to help prepare her for this
Mhm.
transition. So then the time has come. It's her birthday time, and for another reason of the plot, the mother has to send for her. So that mother has not been in contact with her at all because that might give away her location. So she hires a Pinkerton detective to find her.
Okay.
And so, of course, she has to do her due diligence to make sure she's getting an honorable man.
Mhm.
And Philip, who is named for Prince Philip from Sleeping
Of
Beauty,
course. Yes.
he's the one that takes the job and has to go find her first off and then escort her back to Houston to claim her inheritance before the bad guys get them. So it's kind of
That's so
a
fun.
journey romance as,
Okay.
as Jeffrey finds and they have the journey back. And so there's a couple times where she gets to save him too. So it's kind of fun.
Well, I think that's only fair,
Of course.
right? I mean, if he gets to play hero, she gets to play heroine. There's a
Of
reason it's called
course.
that, right?
That's right.
That's super fun. So our prince, air quotes, is really a Pinkerton agent
Correct.
in this one. Now, have you done anything with Pinkerton agents before?
I have not, I don't think. Now I'm going to say that and then
I know. Well, I've read most of your books, and I'm trying to think. I don't recall
I
a
don't
Pinkerton
think I
agent.
have. One of the things that was interesting when I was researching his character, though, was during this time period, which, if I'm remembering correctly, it's very early 1890s. The Pinkertons were kind of going through a stage where there was a lot of corruption within the organization. Because what would happen was this was also the time period that a lot of labor unions were being established and that kind of thing. And so those that were wealthy could hire the Pinkertons to be their security force, basically. And
Okay.
so then, they would like the people working for them to put down the rabble that were trying
Right.
to stand up for themselves. And so there was a lot of that going on during this time period. And so I really wanted to make my Pinkerton different. And so he even talks about how he wanted to make sure that he took cases that steered clear from anything that was tainted with corruption, just to
Hmm.
kind of show his honorable side. But
Sure.
it kind of also left him with the less paying jobs or the ones that nobody else wanted. So he got stuck doing a lot of, you think of like the PI stuff, so he got
Right.
stuck, okay, I have an unfaithful spouse or I've got a,
Yeah.
all this dirt that
I have
he's
a
like,
missing
okay,
dog. Come get my
yeah.
missing dog. Right. Yeah.
And so he's really like cynical when it comes
Hmm.
to the upper class because those
Oh,
are the people that can afford to pay him and he sees what kind of stuff they do.
do.
And so he's just really not impressed. And so
Hmm.
he's expecting this spoiled rich girl. And of course, she's
Oh,
been,
yeah.
growing up in the country and she, she's just as pure as can be and as innocent and, all of that. And so it's really fun kind of putting his preconceived notions up against, her genuineness and then
Yeah.
seeing how those play out together.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be interesting too, because I'm trying to think if you have a life where you've grown up for the most part pretty secluded. Did you write in where she's like almost stunned by a lot of the things that she sees as she's coming out of that seclusion, or is she semi prepared for that?
So she's somewhat prepared, but I do have everything is new to her.
Yeah.
When they encounter some people along their route and so her heart is very easily engaged, especially when young children are involved or
Mm,
that kind of thing. And so she hasn't had a chance to develop relationships on her own, and so she has a chance to experience that for the first time. And so learning how to build trust with somebody, learning how to see past the defenses,
hmm.
of our hero. And then also just being struck by, I want to be able to help these people. I've never been in a situation where I've had that opportunity and I see
Mm,
these children and they're suffering and I want to do something to help. And so there's some play off of that. And then she has a lot of worry about what she's going to find when she gets to the end of this road. So she remembers her mother from she was like 5 when she
okay.
had to leave. So she remembers her mother, but she's had 15 years and
Yeah.
she has all these, in her mind, grandmother said, "Oh, mama loves you and she is, she just can't wait to have you back." But she's wondering what if mom has gotten remarried and has other children and no longer, cares about me? What if she's completely forgotten that I'm out here? What if she wanted the money for herself? What if, and so she has all these kind of insecurities that are running through her mind, even though she's trying to stuff them down and be,
Yeah.
the responsible, mature person. So I think a lot of us kind of battle that, where in our head we know what's right and what's logical, but our
Hmm.
heart still kind of feels insecure about things. And so
Yeah.
she kind of battles that too.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And it's kind of interesting too, because when you go into any new environment, you have your perceptions are based off of what you know, right? And so you get into these new environments, and sometimes you're almost betrayed by certain things. Like you feel like there's this belief that there's an innate goodness in people, or like for me, if I grew up in a rural small town, which I did, and then I go into a big city, I just assume everybody in the big city is going to take the time to give you eye contact, right? And say, "Hi, how's it going?" And when you do that, they look at you in the big city like, "Why are you talking to me? Go along, little person, go along," right? And so it's probably, was it fun when you were like creating her to put her in some of those types of situations too?
It was. Her story was a little bit different because they were still trying to hide her. So
Right.
as she's going through, he's trying to keep her from having any contact with people. So even when the kids came up,
Okay.
he was like, "No, you need to just leave it." And she's like, "I can't leave it. I have to go." And
Okay.
so it was kind of the opposite of that, as far as she is still trying to hide away from
Be
all
low
the
key.
people.
Okay.
But of course that's impossible. And so
Right.
there's a few things that happen along the way, and some are good situations. Like the mother of the boys that she helps is obviously very excited and happy,
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
thinks she's wonderful. And then they come across somebody who is not, and is
Yeah.
rather mean and ugly, and
Yeah.
all of that. And so kind of just having to learn how to adjust to what you come across in life, because not everybody's going to be the same.
No, they're not. Unfortunately, you always want to think that everybody's going to be at least kind at a minimum, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Whoa, what just happened?" So speaking of the unkind, when I was little and the Disney Sleeping Beauty would come on, I'm trying to even remember if it would come on because that was back in the days of like VHSs and prior. Anyway, when I would have an opportunity to see it, I wouldn't watch it because I was so terrified of the witchy person that turns into the, yes, and she turns into this fire breathing dragon. And how do you morph that into a villain in the Wild West?
So I had a lot of fun with the dragon imagery.
Okay.
The the heroine's father, and then his brother were kind of known as the wolf and the dragon, because at first they were in business together and they were very ruthless. And so her father was the one who was very cunning, very, he found your weakness and went after it. And then the dragon was the one that was more like ambitious and greedy, and that side of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so after her father met her mother, he changed, right? So he kind of had this
Okay.
come to Jesus story
Sure.
where, she kind of converted him. And so he became this softer, gentler kind of character. And the dragon brother is like, "This is not what I signed up for. She's completely ruined you. And, I need, to continue. We need to
Mm-hmm.
separate our companies, and I need to take over, and, all this kind of stuff." So we have that imagery going on between the two. And then of course her best friend, as she grew up, is now this wolf. And so the
Right.
wolf is kind of representing the loyalty,
Mm,
with that coming through. And then we still have the greedy, selfish dragon who is trying to destroy everything. So it's really done more with imagery than it
mm-hmm.
is with, obviously there's no actual dragon.
That would have been a different one. Saddle
Spoiler
up
alert.
your dragons. We got a trail to blaze. That would be an interesting twist. Oh, I love it. That's cool though that you do give a nod to the fairy tale part though, with the dragonish type uncle. And so I'm going to
Right.
assume he's pretty much the primary villain, but I'm sure there's probably twists in there too. So
Yes.
awesome. Awesome. So overarching throughout your stories, you always have like a spiritual thread or a lesson that somebody's learning, and it can kind of go all, different places, not necessarily just one. Did you have a specific concept in mind when you wrote Cloaked in Beauty, of a concept that you wanted to connect with the readers about?
There's a lot of reconciliation in this
Mhm,
story. There's obviously the idea of family
mhm.
is huge, and the separation that had to happen in this instance, but also the brokenness that happened with the uncle and the brother, and so there's a lot of, I mean, families are messy.
Yeah.
Families are just are messy, but there's a message of reconciliation there that, especially when we have Christ in our lives, we seek out ways to mend those broken pieces, and
Mhm.
so there's a lot of that message overarching in this story. There's also just the image of the kindness and not assuming things about people, because, like I said, he came in with a lot of misconceptions about
Right.
all rich people are, stuck up
Right.
and selfish and, whatever. And she's just this innocent, happy, brave, and so it's has some themes like that, as well as to, be open to get to know people for who they are. And there's, of course, always there's a lot of trust, right? You have to trust God, because we don't know what's going on, and
Mhm.
this is beyond my power to guarantee that this is going to work out the way that it needs to work out. And so there's a lot of trusting God when, even though you're trying to control things, we
Yeah.
are never actually in control.
Right. What? Karen, don't tell me that. My world has been shattered all this time. Yeah, I think that's one of the things you kind of learn at an early age is that you are not in control. I think the hard part is somehow accepting that.
Right. And
I
we
don't
still
like.
try.
Yeah,
We still we
I know. It's like, "Oh, come on. I want to be in control, Lord. Won't you let me be in control? That'd be nice."
I know what's best. Come on.
Right. Right. Why won't he just listen to us? Right?
Sometimes I'm glad he doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think we want the world according to Karen and Jamie. That would be a
Oh,
scary
no.
place to
No.
live in. All right. So this story is releasing in December. And then are we going to get any more fairy tale retellings or are we moving on to something else?
So there will be some more coming, not with Bethany House. I'm starting a new series with them, which I'm also very excited about.
Yay.
It's going to be the Secret Society of Spinsters. So that's going to be
Oh my
fun.
gosh. I love it already.
And then I am going to do some indie pubbing. And so I'm going to be
Okay.
indie pubbing a few more fairy tales. I'm hoping to do maybe one a year in addition to my Bethany House books. And so I'm working on a Beauty and the Beast story right now, because what book loving person doesn't want Beauty and the
I was going to say,
Beast?
I feel like we're missing a really key story in this equation
Right.
of fairy tale
Right.
retellings.
So I'm hoping to release that in June. We'll see if I can get it all finished and written, but that's the plan.
Now, it is kind of funny though. I know that you're releasing that next summer, hopefully, and it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. But I will say, as somebody who's read your books for a long time, I feel like you had a slight nod, and maybe I'm wrong, but in the one, and I don't remember the title, but it's the woodcutter one where she's in a yellow dress. And didn't she have a library?
So the
Oh,
one
which
with
one
the
am I
yellow
thinking of?
dress was Head in the Clouds, and she was with a sheep farmer. I don't know if that's the one you're
Maybe I'm just merging your books. That's probably, I shouldn't do this on a podcast. Well, there, did you wrote one with a heroine though who was in the bookstore, and that was the one with the sheep herder?
She was not in a bookstore, but she was a teacher. I
Oh
I don't
my
know.
gosh!
There
Did
was
I read this book?
a librarian heroine
That's
who
it.
was with a blacksmith. Is that the
That's the
one?
one.
Okay.
That's the one. That's it. I was getting scared there. I'm like, okay, this is not the time I want to suddenly remember this was by a different author because that's really awkward. Yes, that's what it was. She was a librarian and she was with a blacksmith. And I
Yes.
always got
Mhm.
kind of a little bit of Beauty and the Beast vibe from that.
I
But that
mean,
might have been
there's
a
a
me
little bit
thing.
of Beauty and the Beast in a lot of mine, because I really like
Hmm.
the kind of dark wounded hero archetype.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of that in several, but yeah, his was kind of a prodigal son kind of
Yes.
story.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was a
Yeah.
lot of fun too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, at least I know I'm not completely losing my mind.
You had it. It was just right on the
It was
edge.
it was right there. But then you start mentioning sheep herders, and I'm like, no, that is definitely not a beast type of a story going on there. All right, so we have the Beauty and the Beast retelling that's coming, hopefully in June-ish, and then
Mhm.
you are starting a new series, The Secret Society of Spinsters.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! Can you say anything about that, or is that still under cloak and dagger?
Oh no.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of writing book 1,
Okay.
and the idea behind it is there are 3, best friends who all
Mhm.
happen to be spinsters, and, they're each spinsters for a different reason. So the
Okay.
first one is kind of the in your face temperance lady who is, like, trying to bring down the saloon, and she's kind of abrasive and so doesn't have a lot of friends within the town.
But
And then the second one is kinda your wallflower who is just extremely shy and just
mhm.
always wants to read a book and wants to can't even imagine looking a man in the eye kind of person.
Mhm.
And then our last one is, the local school teacher who, is very much pro-career and wants to be this career woman. And of course, in that time period, once you married, you were usually asked to step down from
Right.
being the teacher, and so she's kind of big career person. So they each are coming at
Okay.
spinsterhood from a different angle,
Yeah.
but they're not it's not just the 3 of them. This is I'm setting it in the town of Albany, Texas, which as so for those of you who don't know, we were originally supposed to schedule this podcast over this last weekend.
Oh, you're gonna out me, Karen. You're gonna out me.
I was gone to Albany, Texas, because that's where this series is set, and I was doing research for that. So that's why I was gone, and we had to reschedule and all of that.
And you had to rush back for the podcast that never happened. Oh, if this, yeah, so you know who's getting blamed for any lack of research. It's gonna be me.
So, but it's been so much fun because Albany is, like, within 45 minutes of me, and I've never
Nice.
really taken the time to go and really dig into the history there, and they have this gorgeous courthouse that was built in 1883 that's there. They have an old jail that was there, and my first hero is the deputy, and so he's in that jail, like, all the time,
Yeah.
and so it was just so perfect to be able to go and do this research and working on this story, how it just all kind of fit together. And so it's been fun to give me an excuse to visit some place that's
Yeah.
like practically in my backyard that I've just never taken the time to go and do. So I'm excited about it for a
That's
lot of
cool.
different reasons. But yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, it sounds like it's gonna be a lot of fun. And if it carries on with the tradition of the Karen Witemeyer book, it's a win-win for everybody. So
Thank you.
I think we'll be good. But the book that everybody wants to focus on right now, because it's actually going to be available, is Cloaked in Beauty. It's by Karen Witemeyer. And if you want, there's 2 books beforehand if you haven't read those. And again, I can't remember the titles, so feel free to drop those again, Karen.
Fairest of heart and if the boot fits.
There we
And I
go.
will tell you for those of you who are series people that like to get all of the books in the series before you start reading, you can do that if you want, but there are no carryover characters. So the only thing joining the books together in a series is the fairy tale theme. So you don't
Okay,
have to read one before you read the other. You can read them in any order because they all kind of stand by themselves.
perfect. And there's no real even cameos or anything from
No.
the other books or anything. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So they really are standalones just connected by the fairy tale theme. Gotcha.
correct.
Perfect. Well, everyone, it makes for great Christmas reading and makes for great Christmas presents and all of that stuff. So they're great books. You're going to want to pick them up. Head over to KarenWhitemeyer.com if I'm not wrong on the website.
That's
Sign up for
correct.
Karen's newsletter. And is there anything else we need to know?
If you like to interact with authors online, I have a Facebook group called The Posse.
Yes.
And we have a lot of fun over there, and I'm active over there 5 days a week. We have great conversations about books, and sometimes I even get people to help me brainstorm plot ideas or characters or all that kind of fun stuff. So it's a great way to kind of get a behind the scenes peek into what's going on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so for sure, if you're on Facebook, head over to that. It's called The Posse.
Correct.
All right. Easy peasy. Karen, thank you so much for being with us today. And looks like we got some more books we'll be chatting about in the future.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It won't stop recording.
First you couldn't join, and now you
No,
can't stop.
am I pushing the wrong button? No. That's weird. All right. Well, we'll just let it record and I'll just cut off the end. So whatever. Thanks for taking your lunch break.
Of course.
I appreciate it.
You bet.
I'll get this up and get everything to the rest of the team so that it can be shared. And what's the actual release date? Do you know?
December 17th.
Okay. All right. So I'll try and get this up beforehand so you maybe get a last push for pre-order. So,
That'd be awesome.
all right. Sounds good. Well, you have a good day, Karen.
Thank you. You too. It's fun to see you.
It's fun to see you too. We'll talk to you later.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.